The UK is on a 3-week lockdown until Easter Monday at the earliest to try and stop the spread of the coronavirus. All shops selling non-essential items like clothes and electronic gadgets have been ordered to close. Hairdressers, beauty salons, libraries, places of worship, play parks, hotels, campsites and caravan parks will also shut. Gatherings of any more than 2 people, excluding the people you live with, will be stopped. This means no social events like weddings. Funerals will still be allowed to take place, but only immediate family can attend.
So that was the UK in March 2020. Like the rest of the world, we went into lockdown and our on-site churches closed. I suspect for many people, the online church was going into a new territory. And so a question might be, what have we discovered in this new world? We've been venturing out on a new journey. What has God revealed to us about God's self on this journey? I'm reminded of a Bible story of some folks who also went on a new journey. A reading from the Godly Play version of the story of Abram and Sarai as they travel into the desert. There was one family who believed that all of God was in every place. They did not know that yet, but that is what they thought. Abram and Sarai were part of that family. When it came time to move to a new place, they were not sure that God would be there, so they wondered what the new place would be like. They walked towards Haran with their sheep and their donkeys. Even the old people and all their children went too. They slept in their tents at night, and during the day they walked along the great river called the Euphrates. It showed them the way and gave them and their animals water to drink. It took a long time. Finally, they met people coming out from Haran. They knew the journey was almost over. Then they were there. Sometimes Abram would go out to the edge of the desert and look out across the sand and into the sky. Then God came close to Abram, and Abram came so close to God that he knew what God wanted him to do. God wanted Abram and Sarai to move on again to another new place. And so the story goes on. They finally came to a place called Shechem. Abram climbed up a hill and prayed to God, and God was there, so Abram built an altar to mark the place. Then they went on. Next they came to a place near Bethel. Abram prayed again, and God was there also. Abram built an altar to mark this place too. God was not just here or there. All of God was everywhere. And I kind of think that our journey into the digital has perhaps been a little bit like that journey of Abram and Sarai, going out into the unknown. And so our on-site churches have closed, and we've all moved into this digital world, trying to explore how we navigate church in almost this uncharted territory. And yet we've discovered that God was already here. God is everywhere. So in our thinking today, we're going to be exploring the whole notion of digital prayer. What have you discovered about yourself and about God and about being part of a worshipping community over the last couple of years, especially if the digital has been a new experience for you? What has that been like? Have you found God online? And has the online helped you to pray? I asked my friend Victoria if she would share a few thoughts about what it means for her to pray digitally, and she's given us a few insights into what helps her to pray.
Hi, I'm Victoria Elliott. I'm based in Edinburgh and I'm an active member of the Scottish Episcopal Church. As my day job, I work in the public sector as a senior content designer, basically developing digital content so it meets the needs of its audience. A lot of my job is to do with words and using evidence to plan how written content is presented and laid out, so that people can find the information they need. I originally studied theology and since then have been actively involved in the church. I'm probably a bit of a theology nerd, so I'm also involved on the Scottish Episcopal Church's Faith and Order Board, as well as its General Synod. I'm particularly interested in digital as a medium through which we encounter God and make God known in the world, much in the same way as Paul wrote the letters we find in the New Testament, and later Luther, who used the printing press in the Reformation. I suppose in my own quiet way, I'm a passionate advocate for the role of digital and faith in the 21st century. Not just in using it, and we've seen a huge uptake during the pandemic, for example through live streaming, but also how we use it and how we approach it through a reflective, spiritual and theological lens. Speaking, writing letters, printing pamphlets, or using digital to spread a message or engage in dialogue are all essentially forms of communication. Each have their own subtle nuances or quirks, which add their own unique colour to the ways in which we communicate. They are different means, but they all provide a way for us to communicate and engage. For me, the fundamental substance and meaning remains our humanity and our relationship with God, one another and the planet. Much like stained glass streams coloured light into a church, it's still sunlight and glass which interact together. It's just the way the light takes on different colours which is different. So, praying digitally is another way we engage, communicate and be with God and one another, as a praying community and in praying for others. We're not virtually or remotely praying, we're praying. We interact with images, sounds and words to pray and encounter God. Digital gives us the opportunity to do this in slightly different ways. And it also broadens the possibilities for how we interact with God. So what does it look like? I really don't need to rehearse the many and creative ways we have connected online to worship through the pandemic, be it live streamed services and reflections on YouTube and Facebook, or Bible studies and gathering for prayer on Zoom. But I think if we limit how we understand the use of digital for prayer through the lens of the pandemic, we miss a trick. Digital enables us to engage with God in ways which speak to our God-given temperaments, much in the same way we all have different learning styles. For me, despite having a career in words on their own don't always do it for me. Without my senses being engaged through sight or sound, it can sometimes feel quite dry. As someone with ADHD, the many words used in prayer means you have to sit still, which can feel restrictive at times. Stop fidgeting is something I remember quite a lot when sat as a child in the pew. In some ways, it was liberating during lockdown, to be able to have live streamed worship on the TV and wriggle guilt-free to my heart's content. Singing in choirs over many years gave me an excuse to use my whole body for the purpose of worship. Not only that, singing beautiful music connected me to God in a profound way. And listening to it now has a similar effect. And something that has sustained me in my spiritual life outside the confines of a church building is listening to choral music. Sometimes quietly, or not so quietly, singing along. Through technology, my phone and headphones, together with an internet connection, I can do this wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. I don't necessarily need to sit down to do it. I'm also a fan of a daily prayer app called Universalis. Universalis lets me follow the liturgy with words and audio on my phone. As the liturgy progresses, the relevant line being spoken is highlighted in yellow. This also engages me and keeps my attention. Somehow, hearing the words spoken and seeing the highlighted text moving down the screen, I am carried through the liturgy and it's harder to get distracted. The words also leap off more significantly to me than if I had used a paper book. These are just a couple of different examples of what works for me. No one person is the same, and neither is there one right way of praying. But I do think using digital for prayer opens up new and different ways for us to be with God, in ways which speak particularly to our souls. And ultimately, through our souls, we meet God.
So friends, those of you who have been following this series will know that each week there is a prayer challenge. And this is really just an invitation to give it a go. Now, you may well still be attending an online digital hybrid church, and in which case you'll be familiar with online prayer. So you may want to explore some new things. There are a variety of apps that you might want to try out, and here are some that I have on my phone. Pray As You Go is a 12-15 minute guided imaginative contemplation with music and some reflective space and time.
Today is Monday the 28th of March, in the 4th week of Lent.
If music helps you to pray, it lists all the music it uses, and I like it that you can explore different prayers and different ways of praying here. Go down the list and choose any of these. Lectio 365 is the devotional prayer app from 24/7 Prayer International, and it's a resource that helps you to pray with the Bible every day.
Today is Monday, the 28th of March, and we are continuing our journey through the Passion of Jesus in the season of Lent. This week, we are reflecting on Jesus' trial before the religious leaders. As I enter prayer now, I pause to be still.
And if you like to pray with a liturgy, I follow the daily prayer app from the Church of England, and I also have the Methodist Church app with readings and the lectionary on it. And as Victoria says, you can listen and pray with a whole variety of music. Your church may have a WhatsApp group where you can post prayers and pray with each other, or you can listen to many of the podcasts that are available. If you haven't tried any of these, give some of these a go. Whether these are our stories, personal stories, or about mission or ministry, how might listening to a podcast help you to pray? And I love that in her reflection, Victoria invites us not just to think about the digital as a means to encounter God, but how we use it, how we approach it through a reflective, spiritual and theological lens. So if you don't want to try out the various apps, perhaps your prayer challenge is to do just as Victoria invites us. How has your use of the digital, thinking through a reflective, spiritual, theological lens, helped you to connect with God and helped you to pray?